All right, let's go ahead and look at solving equations. So there's lots of different tools that you can use. For this one here, because there is an x squared term and an x term, we have a couple choices. We either have quadratic formula or factoring. So first I want to just see if it's factorable because it will make life a little bit easier. So I have 4 and negative 3, which would give us 4 and 1. I need to get a positive 4, so that's not going to work because I can't get this. And then if I just put a negative on there, then I wouldn't get my positive 4. So that's not going to work at all, which means quadratic formula is what I need to do. So I have negative b, which means a negative 3, plus or minus the square root of b squared. So when I square that, I'd get a positive, minus 4ac. This is your a term. It's in front of the x squared. And then this is all over 2a. So we end up getting 3 plus or minus over 4. And this is 9 minus 8 times 2 is 16. That'd be, this is 8 and then times 2. And so that would be negative 7. So in this case here, we can't simplify the 7 at all, but we can deal with the negative. So we're going to get an I that comes out of there. We'll leave a 7 there, and then we'll have a 4 underneath. So that would be it for the first question. For this one here is a little bit different. I see a square root, and so if I can get that isolated, then I can undo the square root. So it looks like I would need to move the 10 over. And so I'll get x minus 3 when I do that by negative 10 and negative 10. Now here, when I square to undo that, what happens is that entire thing is squared. So this works out real nice that I get an x plus 9, but over here I have x minus 3 times x minus 3. So this is going to give me x squared minus 6x plus 9. Okay, so now I kind of have a problem similar to number 1 that I need to get everything onto one side. So I'm going to set it equal to happy little 0. And I'm going to move my x over, which gives me x squared minus 7x. And then I'm also going to move my 9 over, which actually goes away. Ooh, this problem is looking better and better. So at this point, since I have it equal to 0, I can go ahead and factor out a common factor, which gives me my 2 answers. This gives me 0, and this one here, if I set this equal to 0 and solve, I get 7. So I would get 0 and 7 as my 2 possible answers. So I just checked to make sure that that looks like it makes sense. It looks like we're good. Okay. So we've got a couple more solving to do. For this one here, I do need to get a common denominator. So this one looks like x minus 12 and x is going to be my common denominator. Oh, this is not working very well. Sorry about that. All right, so this one here needed an x to make that happen, so that's x squared. This one here needed an x minus 12 to make that happen. And then this needed everything. So I can combine my like terms. I get x squared multiply this out, plus 6x minus 72, and then x squared minus 12x. Now, right now, my denominator is exactly the same on both sides, and since this is an equation, I need to make sure everything is the same on both sides. So since the bottom is the same, I just need to go ahead and solve to make the top the same. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract an x squared on both sides, which suddenly made this so much easier. I'm now going to move the x over by adding a 12. And then I'm going to move the 72 over to the other side. And then I'm going to divide by 18. So I'm hoping that's a nice pretty number. 72 divided by 18 is 4. So 4 would be the answer to that problem. All right, I'm going to go ahead and erase some things here. There we go. And we'll go ahead and look at this question. So this one here is so similar to the one I had before where I have a squared term, which means I just need to get it by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move this guy over. And then I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the 3. It was multiply, so division will undo that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to square root both sides. So this gives me x minus 2, but this right now gives me plus or minus 3. So there's two different things that would give me a 9 when I square it, a negative 3 as well as a positive 3. So I'm going to get x is equal to 2 plus 3, and I also have x is equal to 2 minus 3. So my two answers would be 5 and negative 1. So 5 and negative 1 are my two answers here. Cool.